Alex here with a live stream video, another live stream video. We are here with Will from Denmark. I'm going to go into a few articles that he sent me, the first one of which came out within a couple of days ago. But before I do that, let me give Will a very brief opportunity to introduce himself. And go ahead, Will.
Hey, my name is William, but just call me Will. Um, 28 years old. I
Mm-hmm.
have a daughter, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been through a high conflict custody battle for almost 2 years now.
So there's going to be a lot of questions that I have for you and probably the viewers as well. But before we get into that, I'm going to go ahead and switch to. By the way, guys, Will, you speak great English. I can understand you well, but I don't think it's your first language. Just letting the viewers know, give them a little bit of a break if it comes to that issue. So here we have the article. I'm actually surprised with the language that they use. This is what you say was the number one paper in Denmark. Just
It's one of the biggest ones. It's not
wow.
number one, but
It's pretty huge, though. It's not like a tabloid. Because this is something that we
no.
might see in the U.S. like in a tabloid, because they refer to the system, like defending the family court system, they say is insane. And I mean, to see this come out from a credible paper in Europe is a pretty big deal. So apparently, and I'm going to let you go ahead and elaborate on this, but apparently, family court lawyers are calling the system a full blown disaster. And hopefully, you can go into some of the details on that. But also, I think I see mentions in this article about some kind of new system that they've been using. So if you'd like to, feel free to go into that as well. And if there has been some kind of transition from one system to another, you can let us know a little bit more about that as well. But go ahead.
Yeah, there's been a transition. I think it was April 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about a month before my custody battle
Mm-hmm.
started.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they switched from before it was easier to go to family court, but they weren't good enough to deal with the cases. So they got a lot of criticism that they weren't dealing with it in a proper way.
Mm-hmm.
So they tried to have a kind of another, what do you call it, instance or something between, so you had to go through what they call, I think it's the agency of family law, they
Mm-hmm.
translate it, but in Danish it's like the family court house, where you just have to, it's more like a family house where you can try and solve your problems and come to an agreement. But the downside of it has been that now I think the waiting time before you get to your first meeting is 8 months, and that's quite a long time. Um,
It somehow sounds similar to what I've heard they have in Sweden, where it's like a system that's not in the court system. Is that supposed to be? Was Denmark getting criticism that the court system was not good at handling this problem, so there should be a sort of non-court system process, or is
no,
it kind of like a mediation system that you just have to go through prior?
I think it's more like they weren't educated in dealing with children,
Oh,
all that sort of stuff. So economy, all the regular stuff
okay.
they were, but
So it's
they
almost like a
weren't.
specialty court that we have, because we in the U.S. we have
Yeah,
specialty courts for like gambling addicts, for drug crimes. So it's almost like similar to what we have here. I guess we call it the family division. Though
it
our
is.
judges, I really question whether even the family judges are very educated on any of this stuff. So it sounds like you didn't have a family division at all, and they created one. So did the
Yeah,
problems get worse, or did they just sort of stay the same?
they got worse.
Oh no.
And I was actually lucky because, as I said, my case started in May
Mm-hmm.
2019,
Mm-hmm.
and I only had like one and a half month before I went to my first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard parents now who have to wait 8, 9 months before they go to their first meeting, and they just they just lose because then they won't have seen their child for 8 or 9 months.
Right, the time. So there's
Yeah,
it's to get to where Nevada's gotten, it's like we've evolved. I don't know if you know this, but Nevada, specifically Vegas, When this state was admitted into the union, one of the things that they advertised themselves as was the divorce state. This is where you go to get divorced because it's so quick and easy and cheap, and that hasn't really ever left us here. That's always, ironically, we're pretty good at handling this stuff, even though it's a mess. And I've created the proper person. Other states and countries are even worse, and it's taken some time to get here. But I think what you describe is really interesting because I've noticed that our family division judges have, I don't, and you haven't talked about this yet, but you'll probably talk about this soon, but they have this sort of idea that litigation isn't the way, and that litigation creates conflict. And so the family judges sort of think that you just need to kind of work it out on your own. And every time that people
Yeah.
go to family court, oftentimes nothing gets done. And what I think is just the mothers, or in some cases fathers, just exploit that. They know that the system works this way, and so they just use it against their other parent. But the irony in all of this is the other judges that aren't in family court who follow the law actually would probably be better suited to handle these cases, because when it comes to people who aren't really thinking in a way that's constructive to society, they're called antisocial people. They just kind of see everything as a game to exploit, or a loophole, or something to get around. That's what the only thing that really ends up working, and that's kind of where my channel came. So is the approach of your family division similar to ours, where they don't really think that the court process itself is a solution, and they just kind of try and get everyone to just leave? They just try to get rid of everyone. I don't know. Go ahead and explain to me a little bit about it, about some of the
Yeah,
problems.
it's like they don't. I'm not sure they don't want to solve cases, but they don't want to find out what's right or wrong. So they just go with the parent that yells the loudest.
Oh, so yeah, they're way back then. I mean, like, that's pretty,
Yeah,
yeah. The person who yells the loudest or talks the longest wins. That's like, there's only like
yeah,
one judge here that does that, and she just retired. But there's going to be some growing pains. Because I think one of the things that's frustrating for family judges is they think it's a court of people who are almost similar to them, in the sense that um, they're not criminal thinkers. And I hate to use that word because it sounds so dark, but what I went through with my ex was that sort of mentality of, this is all just a game. I'm just playing chess with you guys. And I think if the judges understood that that's who they were dealing with, they would realize that the sad conclusion is they have to use force. They have to force. I'm going to go into your next article now. Let me go ahead and pull that article up. This is the second article that was sent to me by Will. It says Supreme Court punishes harassment. Father gets residence and custody because the mother hid the child. And what's interesting about this article is they specifically say that the mother didn't use any kind of sneaky or covert tactics. That they said she was brazen. The specific word they use is overt, which means she was almost like proudly rubbing it in everyone's face. I'm not sure if I'm getting that wrong from this article because it's translated to English, but am I understanding this correctly? And I don't know if you
yeah.
want to talk about.
I mean, from what I understood from the article is just she didn't have a problem with what she was doing. She was just hiding her, I think, it was son, and the father wasn't allowed to see him at all. She just went underground, and apparently still won like everything in the family court system before the Supreme Court came and took the case,
Which is
which is
good.
quite unusual.
Yeah.
It's not happened. I
y-
think it's happened like 2 or 3 times, and it's really harassment over like 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
oh my
That is
God.
just intense, and it's so. I think I saw it in a forum, a couple of days ago that
Hmm.
if you just abuse just a little bit, you can get away with it. So it's only if you go to the extremes that you'll get punished like this. And it's like 3 out of, I think it's 24, 25,000 cases we have each year.
Jeez.
So it's not it's not a lot.
There's a few things you made me want to talk about, but what
Yeah.
I think is with the lower court judges, especially the family division judges, is they are always trying to find out who's the good guy and the bad guy and what a parent's motives are. But the other judges, and specifically the Supreme Court, at least in Nevada, they actually just want to follow the law. And so when they see somebody who's, doing things that are not consistent with the law, they render a decision. And oftentimes it ends up being in favor of the father, because usually the father is the one who lost. At least back then. Things are changing now. When I read this article and I saw that they just kind of let the mother get away with it, they were probably trying to speculate, well, she might have some kind of reason. There might be something we don't know. He might not be a good person. Or they just don't want to change things because the child's still alive. The child's not dead. So maybe we shouldn't change. I don't know. I feel like they try and get too much into the story that's not in front of them, whereas the other judges in the Supreme Court actually want to follow the law. I don't know if that's kind of the situation.
I just think they're lazy. To be honest,
Yeah.
I mean,
That
I
too.
had like 10, 15, 20 pages of accusations. I've been, I've been accused of everything.
Yeah.
You wouldn't surprise me with another thing. I mean, it's already been there. And I got told in the family agency of family law that we're gonna check if it's right or wrong or anything. And I went to 3 meetings
Hmm.
and I asked them, "Have you checked everything that I've been accused of?" And they said no.
Wow.
And then I said, "Well, then why are we here?"
Yeah.
And
Sometimes I felt like the judges that were lazy here or didn't care or didn't render decisions, they just figured, well, people are going to get so disenfranchised they'll stop coming back. And that's kind of what the judge wanted. I almost felt like the judges thought if they actually process these cases, they're just going to get more cases. And if they don't and they just force people to leave, then they don't have as much work because the people stop coming back. And then I don't know if you've seen the video, end of filings is not end of abuse, but in some weird way, I feel like the judges think if the parents aren't coming back, everything must be fine now. When it's like, no, they just gave up and quit. In fact, the first article that we looked at specifically mentioned that citizens in Denmark were starting to lose confidence in the legal system. Let me find that quote. It was very interesting because this is actually what I think they should pay attention to over here. There's some mention here. I'm going to find it. Legal security, that's what they call it.
yeah,
That the public in Denmark is starting to not feel that the legal system is secure based on their interactions with the family court system. And of course, this is translated, but let me know. I mean, is that something that's starting to happen there?
yeah, it is. I know a lot of fathers who, it's just so easy to just get away. You just have to stay at a women's shelter, and then if you stay there for 3 months, we have a law in Denmark that says that the child must, have the address at the parent that it's at or with
Oh.
for the majority of the time. So basically, if you kidnap your child or children for 3 months, you get everything for free. Um, and they usually do it by going to the shelter saying, "Oh, my ex is a stalker. He is this horrible person. He will stalk me. He will come and kill me. He will do all sorts of bad things." So that if he tries to just come to see his child, or if it's a woman, some men do it as well. They can just call the police, and the police will say, "Oh yeah, but she said you're this horrible person, so we'll just have to get rid of you and protect the child."
I can't
Even if
stand that. I can't stand
even
that.
if it's the other way around, it's like reverse psychology or something. It's this victim mentality. it's awful.
Well, they're just gaming the system. I pulled up that third
Yeah,
article. When you started to talk about the shelters, I pulled up Article 3, which is mothers abuse shelters in divorce cases. And one of
yeah,
the lines that jumped out at me is the authorities are aware of the problem, but the shelters do not believe that it is possible to cheat.
of course not.
And that, like, they must have the brain of a 5-year-old to not
Yeah,
think that somebody wouldn't do something like that. It's so common. There are some states here where you get a free attorney if you claim domestic violence. Magically, they have more domestic violence claims. People just want
yeah,
the free lawyer. they want they don't have any money. They need a free lawyer, so they lie. So when you create a system like that, that's exactly what's going to happen. And to me, it's so strange that they would have never thought that people would do that. So how bad is it? I mean, how is it getting worse? Are more people doing it because they see it's working? I mean, what's happening?
I think so. And I mean, my ex did it, so
Yeah. If it
I've
if it
yeah,
didn't work, they wouldn't do it. That's one of the things that I always tell people. If it
yeah,
didn't work, like when you people complain about false accusations, well, it works. That's why they do it. If
yeah.
there was something there that prevented it, people would stop. Lawyers would stop. We got a few comments here, mostly people greeting us. Shay says, hi, Alex. Hi, Will. Christine says, same. Hi, Alex and hi, Will. We got Darla, who's trying to argue that your new, I guess the new system doesn't have jurisdiction. Unfortunately, other countries don't actually have a U.S. Constitution to sort of pin them down. So they can, from what I understand, enact whatever statutes they deem necessary. There may be some other kind of system that restricts your lawmakers. There may be some kind of European treaty or European Union. Do you know anything about that?
No.
Yeah. So we have so our lawmakers make laws in the US, but we also have a second system of law called the Constitution that actually limits the types of laws they can make. It's supposed to shackle our lawmakers. In Denmark, they probably have something that you just aren't aware of. They probably can't pass any law that they want to. There's probably some kind of human rights something that can,
Yeah, but
yeah.
yeah, human rights, but that's it. I mean, it's the UN
Okay,
human rights
so
or
it's a
anything.
United Nations thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I mean, I think it's not even just your country. I've heard in New Zealand you can't represent yourself, you're not allowed, so you don't even have court access. I've heard
neither.
what? You can't do
You
that then?
can you can't do that here. You're
Oh,
supposed to have a lawyer.
that's scary. What if you can't get one? No case.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I heard that this guy he had to pay
Oh
a
my
lot. He couldn't
god.
afford it, so he had to just give up because he couldn't afford it. And he couldn't get the free free process where the state pays it for you.
People don't understand. Like they complain here about so many things. And I heard in Spain there was a law that said that if you were accused by a woman of some kind of sexual crime, that you couldn't force her to appear in court. Where in the U.S. we have the confrontation clause, and so they had cases starting to spike in Spain where you couldn't confront your accuser. You'd be subjected to criminal proceedings, and you couldn't even question them on the stand. Other countries don't have a constitution, so they don't have these obligations. I heard in Sweden that you can't even bring lawsuits as an individual. I guess there's some kind of government agency that controls corporate malpractice and stuff like that, and so citizens can't even bring lawsuits. So this is a pretty crazy. I mean, this person thinks that it's a jurisdictional issue, but other countries don't work the same as us. iTumbler says it's a great show and you're appreciated. Darla says that she'd like to learn more about Supreme Court rulings. Before I ask Will this question, my understanding and is that in Denmark, similar to most of the U.S., the Supreme Court doesn't hear a lot of child custody stuff. It's only very recent in Nevada that we've started to see the lawyers sort of fight back and file a bunch of appeals. But what's it like in Denmark? How often are they involved in child custody and divorce actions, the Supreme Court specifically?
Almost never.
So
Uh,
that's not
the
good.
family court system is set up. We have two courts,
Hmm.
so it's like two levels. And first, it's like a city that you live in that has a courthouse, and then it's for the entire country. Um, and that's it. Because, I mean, if you can go higher in than the country courthouse, um, unless you're one of the, I think it's 3 cases out of 24,000 that goes to the Supreme Court.
Wow. So it sounds
After-
like they have discretionary review in Denmark, which means that they don't have to take all appeals. That Denmark Supreme Court can choose which cases it wants to hear. And the ones that it doesn't choose, they're not necessarily saying they were wrong. They're just saying they didn't choose them. Is that kind of what I'm understanding?
It's it's just set up in, like, Supreme Court is not something that's used
accessible.
in child cases.
Okay. Yeah.
So it really has to be a bad case, otherwise it's it's for other cases, not the child custody issues, because they still think that most child custody battles can be solved by drinking a cup of coffee and putting it all behind us and just laugh and become best friends and be the best parents for our children, but it doesn't quite work.
Yeah. It's like they see it. It's like they see it like this person. Both people want to work things out for their kids, and so of course all they need is a cup of coffee. But in reality, your ex. I'm just going to speak for my ex. My ex would think. She'd think, okay, so they're going to think that I just need to work this out. So I'm going to play around like I'm going to, but really I'm not. And they're not going to do anything to me, so I'll be fine. And I mean, that's just, it's a different way that she thinks. That's just like, okay, since they think that this is what we need, I'm going to use this as a weapon to get what I want. I'm just going to exploit it. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I mean, that's something that I'm hearing not just from, I think you're the only viewer I have from Denmark, actually, but I have quite a few from Australia, Canada, and the UK. Quite a few that are saying they have a similar problem with their court system there. In Nevada, the Supreme Court doesn't have a choice. If a parent files a notice of appeal, the Supreme Court has to hear it. It's mandatory, and I think that it's a wonderful thing that the family courts should get supervised just as much as all the other courts. So now are you saying that more attorneys are asking for review by your Supreme Court, or are you saying that your Supreme Court specifically is like on its own saying we need to look at more of this, and they're the ones that are deciding to look at more cases?
I think it's the Supreme Court that's deciding.
That's so good.
But I don't know if it's going to continue, and because it's the way, I mean, the cases they've taken is years and years and years of crap and harassment and all that stuff, where the children are at risk, both like development and just a happy childhood. It really has to be really, really bad, on like the verge of life and death before they even go there.
So it's nice that they're getting involved now, but what's going to probably start happening is there's going to be less overt and obnoxious problems, and there's going to be people realizing, okay, now the Supreme Court here is doing stuff, so we need to be sneaky. So it's going to be a long process, a long evolutionary process for your court system to figure it out. But they seem to be on the right track because they're deciding on their own to get involved. And they're realizing that ordinary people walk away with the perception. Ordinary people don't end up in $1 million lawsuits. Ordinary people end up in family court. And so it's happening here, and it sounds like it's happening there, and your court wants to do something about it. Hey guys, I'm not going to have this one go on for an hour, but maybe we'll have some more updates with Will in the future. Definitely keep us up to date on what's going on there. I'm hoping that we get more viewers from other countries as well, so if you guys are wanting to send me some stuff that you want talked about in a live stream and you're from like Australia or Canada or something, I have a lot of viewers from these other countries. In closing, is there anything else you wanted to say, Will, or you just want to kind of say goodbye? Or
Well, I've got nothing.
Okay, we did good. We got enough.
I think we got through.
We got through it.
Cases. I could go on forever to show like what's it really like, what it's really like here in Denmark, what you kind of go through and all that. But
Yeah,
It could go on for an hour or two.
maybe we'll come up with a different topic next time, something that kind of jumps to mind. Definitely, you're appreciated by the viewers, and yeah. So, guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. And again, send me any emails if you want to talk about any particular current events going on in your country with regards to the family court system. Thank you so much for coming on. Well appreciated.
Thank you.